Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we review our favorite RPGs, collectible card games, MMOs, video games, PC games, and bring up interesting topics and things that we'd like to share with everyone. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Rogue One, Episode 8, The Future of Star Wars. Like Kyle says in the intro to your podcast, Kyle, the future is bright when it comes to Star Wars.
It is. Blindingly bright.
Yes. Because we have a Star Wars movie coming out every year, I would say pretty much for the foreseeable future.
Right. So we have no idea when that will actually end.
So we have quite a bit to talk about today, and we're going to have to try to condense it into about an hour. It's going to be kind of difficult for us because we usually have conversations about Star Wars that last about 3 hours on average. So we're going to try to keep it as tight as possible. That being said, every now and then we will have a couple times during the panel where if you have any questions, any theories, any things like that, feel free to go over to the microphone in a little bit that we have set up.
We'll let you know when that time is.
Yes. All we do is just ask that you keep your theories and your questions as quick and tight as possible. We don't need a whole thesis on your Star Wars theories because we want to make sure we get as many people in as possible. So just keep that in mind. All right. Well, are we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's do this thing. So first and foremost, one of the biggest questions that we had leaving The Force Awakens is who are Rey's parents? Who are Rey's parents? Now, many people going in, and I know Kyle, you had this theory and many people shared it, was that Han Solo was her father.
Yeah, I would have bet money on that.
Yes.
So would I.
Turned out not to be true, obviously. Well, maybe not 100%, but pretty sure at this point that that's not the case.
Yeah, and
that would be really weird if it was.
Yeah. She is. Daisy Ridley is later has since come out, like in just various interviews, and has basically said, well, we all know now that Han isn't my dad in the movie, and so it's kind of debunked that. Most people, or at least many people, left the theater believing that Luke Skywalker was her father. So. There's kind of mixed messages going on when it comes to the possibility of Luke being her father. Gentlemen, what do you have to say about this stuff?
The thing is there's no real solid, concrete idea either way. There's a lot of hints and a lot of coincidence or will of the Force that could say that yes, Rey and Luke are related, and it would make perfect sense in the Star Wars sense if they were related, but there's nothing to say one way or another that is actually the case. Obviously, the lightsaber passed down from father to son to daughter makes perfect sense, especially in Star Wars. The lightsaber is sort of this rite of passage that gets passed down from one generation to the next, and so now that it is Rey's, although she's kind of giving it back to Luke at this point, at the end, trying to anyways. He's just sort of looking at her like, and we don't know if he actually takes it, but, that's a pretty good, indication that perhaps they're related, but there's nothing concrete. And so it could just be Rey is Rey. And we have no idea who her parents are, and we'll find out later. Who knows? What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I agree with you. I think that's probably the strongest possibility right now based on the characters that we know, the information that we have. It seems like if she is related to any characters that we know, it's most likely Luke Skywalker. Like you said, the lightsaber is probably the biggest evidence in support of that. The fact that not only does she have it, but that it sort of called out to her through the Force. She had she touched it and had a vision of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and all this stuff that happened before, and then, we get brief teases of things that happened between episode 6 and 7 that also seem to involve Luke Skywalker. So,
Right.
I mean, you would think it could just be something where she is like, there's like no more Jedi out there right now, and she's the first one to sort of ignite the spark again. So the Force is sort of telling her like, hey, here's the history of this lightsaber. Now you need to go find Luke. But I think at least to me, it would make more sense that they're related. And have that stronger connection there. But then there are some, it's funny because there are like little things in the movie that make me keep tipping one way or the other. Like when Finn first tells her that BB-8 has a map to Luke Skywalker, and she goes, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. And it's like, well,
If they're related.
if Luke is her dad, how could she never have heard of him? I mean, maybe she didn't realize that her dad was this powerful Jedi, but from the...
Then that opens up so many other questions.
Yeah.
And we're not really sure we want to think of Luke as a bad parent.
Well, let's go. Kyle, you mentioned the vision right there with Rey as a child. So let's go ahead and bring up the shot right here as we see Rey being held by Simon Pegg's, Unkar Plutt's greasy hands.
One a quarter portion.
Luke does not seem like the kind of father. I mean, we would hate to think that Luke would A, abandon his child, and B, leave him with such a horrible alien.
Like Unkar Plutt.
Yes, or Simon Pegg, for that matter. I don't leave your child with him either. But so this kind of raises some questions about who exactly left her. Now, in the shot, she sees a ship going away. And actually some people have thought, well, this is very similar to Luke Skywalker's shuttle from the old Marvel series from the 1980s. Yes, there are some people who believe that. However, it doesn't really seem like that is the ship, because Pablo Hidalgo, who's the head of one of the heads of the story group at Lucasfilm, said, well, here's what the ship design is, actually. So it actually does not look like Luke Skywalker's shuttle quite at all. In fact, if anything, I would say that this is more like a Greyhound bus-ish kind of starship, if you were going to go like that, and they were just kind of dropped off on a junkyard planet, essentially. So the question is, if Luke didn't drop her off, or maybe her parents didn't drop her off, did someone else drop her off? Is it possible that maybe Kylo Ren perhaps dropped her off on Jakku?
Well, he does respond rather violently when he's told that, the traitor and the droid were assisted by a girl. What girl? And he's not very pleased about that, so he may have some idea, but there's some other stuff that may contradict that.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that second. Yeah, I do think that the possibility of Kylo or some sort of dark side-ish person maybe leaving her there to get out of the way would make sense in some ways, because if you were to say like, oh, she doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is, well, Kylo has the ability to kind of get into people's brains and turn off a switch, and that doesn't seem too far-fetched in the Star Wars universe to say, forget this. Ooh.
But see, the other thing I was going to say about the other thing I was going to mention about that, though, I mean, she seems to not know who Luke Skywalker is, but then also when she meets BB-8 and she says, where do you come from or whatever, and he beeps and she says, oh, classified, really, me too, big secret. So it's like, how much of her supposed, ignorance about Luke and the Jedi and her history and her parents and stuff, like how much of it is her not knowing stuff and how much of it is her trying to keep a secret?
Yeah, and some of it, she knows that she needs to get to Luke. Because with Maz saying, dear child, I see your eyes. You already know the truth. Whomever you're waiting for on Jakku, they're never coming back. But there's someone who still could. And she says, Luke. Maz says, the belonging you seek is not behind you, it is ahead. So right there, that idea of Luke she has this connection to Luke somehow.
You're right. Plus, when Kylo Ren is interrogating her and reading her mind, he says, I see, I know you've been dreaming at night, and I see the island. And then, of course, by the end of the movie, we see she goes to an island to find Luke, and it's like, oh, she's been dreaming about this place.
Yeah. We shall see.
And is that just, premonitions? Or is that actually, relational clues?
Well,
We
Ray,
don't know. Yeah, Ray sees a lot of stuff in her vision. Not all of that stuff is necessarily stuff that she was actually directly there. For example, the first thing that she sees when she touches that lightsaber is Cloud City. She was not in Cloud City.
Wasn't even born.
No, I hope, yes. Not that we know of, right? No, she wasn't. She's approximately 18 or 19 in this film. Some people look at the particular scene with the massacre of the Jedi, okay? And Rey, at one point in this vision, looks up to see a figure above her and who gets then impaled by Kylo Ren, and then she looks and there's Kylo Ren standing there with the Knights of Ren in the rain with what we are to assume are Jedi laying everywhere. And a lot of people assume, it was, out on the internets, that the interwebs, with all those tubes and stuff, that she was there at perhaps the academy when she was a young girl, 5 or 6, and then was not killed by Kylo, but then put on Jakku and mind wiped and yada yada yada. However, that doesn't quite make sense anymore.
Because of a certain book that just came out.
Yeah. Bloodline just came out. And I'm not going to spoil anything Bloodline. It's a great book.
It's fantastic.
It's really great. If you missed out on any politics and you're like, I wish I could know more about what the heck is going on with the New Republic and the Resistance and the formation of the First Order, I highly suggest you check out this book. It just came out recently. But in this book takes place approximately 5 or 6 years.
6 years.
Yes. Oh yes, yeah. This is totally canon. And in fact,
All the new books and stuff coming out nowadays are.
They are considered, for better or for worse, everything from hey, I got some of the new Marvel comics here. These are considered on the same level of canon as the movies. At least the story group considers it that way. So anyway, this takes place 5 to 6 years before The Force Awakens, right when the First Order is just about starting and the Resistance is just about starting. And Kylo Ren
is still off with Luke training.
Yes, and Ben, he's known as Ben. So Rey would be approximately 12 or 13 during this book, and it's not mentioned at all. Just a little thing to keep in mind. So that idea that she was there at the Jedi Temple at 5 or 6, saw the massacred Jedi, etc., probably doesn't hold up.
Not anymore.
Because, at least not anymore. So we're learning additional things as we go forward. But again, Bloodline, highly suggest you pick that up.
Before we move on, you wanted to talk about the Knights of Ren, right?
Oh yes, also
and considering you are Kylo.
Well,
yes.
That's just another. Obviously that was a cool scene in the movie, but brief. But I just thought the designs of those characters were really cool and everything. We got a brief glimpse of them in one of the trailers, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to find out more about these guys. And then in the movie, there's nothing. There's like a 2-second shot during the vision, and Supreme Leader Snoke, when he's talking to Kylo Ren, addresses him as even you, Master of the Knights of Ren. That's all the information we have, is that Kylo Ren is the master of some group called the Knights of Ren. We do know that the name Ren is like part of a title, kind of like Darth. Obviously now we know his name's Ben Solo. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Force Awakens, but I don't know why you're here for that.
Yeah, please leave. I love you, but go see the movie.
Go watch the movie.
Okay.
It's a whole lot better than that, trust me.
So we know it's this group. They take on a new name with Ren in the title somewhere, and we know there are a bunch of other masked armored warriors who seemingly do not have lightsabers. So maybe this is just some group of Jedi hunters. Maybe they're professional assassins or bounty hunters or whatever, and
they are at the employ of Snoke in the First Order.
Yeah, and then Kylo decided to join them and was like, hey, I've got force powers and a lightsaber, so I can kill more Jedi than the rest of you. Can I be your leader? And they're like, yeah, sure. Or maybe he banded the group together. I don't know. But
There-
that is
there's-
definitely.
There's some cool info, just little bits of info about Kylo Ren in the visual dictionary right here, and also in the character encyclopedia as well that came out. That just as a quick reference, if you're interested in learning up little hints of Kylo Ren, he apparently is encouraged to use kind of both light and dark side abilities by Snoke, according to the book, which is kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting stuff with Kylo. He's obviously a very tormented person, which is why we love him so much. He needs medication. Guy needs medication. Okay. So we're good.
We
So
mentioned Snoke a couple times.
Yes.
And that's another one of the big theories that came out.
oh my goodness.
And there are as many theories on the internet about who Snoke is as there are clone troopers during the Clone Wars.
Yes.
I swear, they're multiplying.
Yes.
I kid you not, like 5 minutes before we started this panel, Joey was just showing me
Yeah.
the slides and,
You're
showing
like,
some
wait,
of the theories.
that?
And I was like, there were some that I had never even heard before.
Yeah, so let's go. I know this is just what happens, by the way, if you type in Snoke on image search on Google. You will see one of these is Snoke Tarkin? Ooh, what if he escaped the Death Star at the last minute and he got half of his face blown off or something, and then, I don't know. Okay.
And never went back to Palpatine.
Yeah, I don't know. And his voice changed completely and what, okay. All right. Or maybe if you're a fan of the cartoon series Rebels, maybe it's the Grand Inquisitor
Who got blown up.
who got blew up real good.
Yep. As did Target, so we're kind of seeing it.
Yeah, we're seeing a thing. So apparently I get blown
you
up.
you fall into the reactor of an Imperial superweapon, it explodes, you might become Snoke.
Yes. Or perhaps somehow Anakin Skywalker's body. Guys, there's a lot of weird stuff out there. I don't know what to tell you. But perhaps one of the most, and this is a theory that was going around quite a bit, was that Snoke is truly Darth Plagueis. Dun, dun, dun. Whoa, okay, no, hang on, come back.
Jason hates that theory, but
Okay,
we're going to
no,
talk about it.
we're gonna talk about it.
Just
Get
out of
back up here.
curiosity, does anyone
Get back
here
up here.
think that Supreme Leader Snoke is Darth Plagueis?
So you've got a couple back there.
Oh,
Got a
more
few.
people.
We have some kind of
so
shakies
glad
and
that
maybe.
most of you are so sane.
No.
Most of them are probably just afraid to raise their hands because they saw you pretend to
Yeah.
leave the table and walk out of the room.
So the theory right there of being Snoke. Now we had mentioned this after probably our second or third viewing to Jason right here. Like, hey Jason, did you hear the theory that Snoke might be Plagueis? And he's like, what? What? We're like, no, that's a theory. He goes, who said that? Who said that? So
Horrible idea.
Jason, I want you to, as calmly as possible, express to us why, in your opinion, this is a bad idea.
Okay, thank you. Two primary reasons. One, Snoke seems absolutely terrified of the fact that Luke Skywalker could be coming back. If you were Darth Plagueis, survived being killed by Palpatine, survived being, not found by the Galactic Empire, and then rose to prominence with a Galactic Empire, clone of a force, in the First Order, I don't think you would be terrified of Luke Skywalker. I think if you survived all of that, you would not be scared that Luke could return to the galaxy. You'd be like, Luke Skywalker, Shmook Skywalker, who cares? I've survived worse. Second, and probably my most hated reason as to why this is not correct, if he is Snoke, that completely undermines the power of Palpatine in the Clone Wars. Because he says, the apprentice killed his master in his sleep. It's ironic, could save others from death, but not himself. And if Palpatine truly believed that he had killed Plagueis, not Snoke, Plagueis, and then, lo and behold, Plagueis comes back under a different name, you would start questioning whether or not Palpatine was really as powerful as he was. And if you can single-handedly take down the entire Republic and the Jedi Order without so much as raising a finger until the last moment, I don't see him not being correct in the fact that he killed his master. And I'm a huge fan of Palpatine. I think he's the best villain in Star Wars. That's my opinion. So anything that takes away from Palpatine, I'm automatically going to like resist with Force lightning and unlimited power, that sort of thing. So I may be slightly biased, but I believe my points are valid.
Okay, now let me give counterpoints, and
No.
try not to force choke me here.
Okay.
And I'm not like a diehard like believer in this theory. I don't know how it's going to go one way or the other, but I just think it's a cool thing to speculate about. I think of all the characters we know so far, like if Snoke is, if there's going to be a surprise reveal there, if he turns out to be some character we know we've met before or heard of before, it's going to be Plagueis. But he also could just turn out to be a completely different character. But I just like talking about this and discussing it. So let me defend against Jason's points there. As far as him being afraid of Luke Skywalker, like if Plagueis did survive and come back, then sure, that would make him more powerful than Palpatine. But Palpatine still overthrew had the entire galaxy ruled with an iron fist. And he and Vader were afraid of Luke as a kid. He was like this young rebel that blew up the Death Star, like he barely even knows what the Jedi are. But if he becomes a Jedi, like he could destroy us. We need to either turn him to the dark side or destroy him. So even if Snoke is more powerful than Palpatine was, now that Luke is a full-fledged Jedi Master, heck yeah, I would be scared of that guy coming back. Like, not terrified necessarily, but it'd be like, this guy could become an issue, like, for my seal-proof plans of galactic dominance, we need to make sure this guy doesn't come back into the picture, because if he doesn't completely overthrow us, he'll at least be a thorn in our side, and we just don't want to deal with that. And then as far as him, if he did survive, that would, like, weaken Palpatine's character or something. I don't necessarily think it would lessen him that much. I think it would more serve to prove that Plagueis is that powerful. Because you see what Palpatine is not. No, you see what Palpatine did, like just as you were saying, you see what he did during the Clone Wars, manipulating the political events of the entire galaxy and, completely coming out of left field, like nobody saw it coming when he was just like, hey, by the way, guys, I'm a Sith Lord, I've got the whole Senate behind me, I can call you out as traitors,
and he wouldn't know that his master was still alive?
Yes, but he had a blind spot.
Exactly. Then
Darth
we
Vader, he didn't even sense his own apprentices about.
exactly.
But that's much
we know
later
that. I
than
said let me finish my comment.
We're
Because we know we've heard from Yoda and others that the dark side, is quicker, easier, more seductive. It leads to, arrogance. And same as when Anakin and Obi-Wan had their final duel. Anakin maybe could have beaten Obi-Wan if he had, the patience and the tenacity that just held out. Obviously, he had a lot of anger and raw strength and whatever. But when Obi-Wan's like, hey, I've got the high ground, you can't beat me, and Anakin's like, yeah, whatever, sure I can, and tries to flip over him, and Obi-Wan's like, no. We know that the dark side and all that power and arrogance can occasionally lead people to make an occasional mistake or have a blind spot or slip up. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Palpatine could believe he had killed Plagueis, especially because maybe we know that Plagueis spent his whole life, his whole career as a Sith devoted to trying to prevent death and learn the path to immortality.
Well, let's talk about that real quick here. And we're going to go, I'm going to
I have so much more
I
to
know,
say.
but we're going to...
But we have the rest of the
Yes,
panel.
exactly. And we're going to take, I'm just going to point out a couple more things about Snoke real quick from Pablo Hidalgo. But if you have any quick comments or questions about The Force Awakens, before we move on to Rogue One, feel free to go over to the mic right there and we'll take any comments or questions that you may have. So Pablo Hidalgo from the Lucasfilm Historic Group was asked on Twitter, my real question to put to rest is, did Plagueis' spirit survive physical death through the dark side? And Pablo Hidalgo from Lucasfilm says, he was said to possess the ability to keep loved ones from dying, not himself. His apprentice killed him.
But people weren't satisfied
And
with
they
that
said, Pablo, are you saying that Sidious said Plagueis is dead? Or are you saying he's actually dead? And he says, Sidious killed Plagueis, ascending to master, as is the way of the Sith.
But they still weren't satisfied.
And then they said, you didn't answer the question. Is he actually dead, or does Sidious think he's dead? He says, I said Sidious killed Plagueis. He killed
kill. Like, there was a killing. Personally, now, that might be a mic drop, or it might just, again, there's still
Or he
could be
might just
some
be regurgitating what was already said in the movie.
now, but in my opinion, this is just my 2 cents right here. I personally think that there is a mystery to Snoke, but it's not necessarily is he Plagueis. It's quite frankly to me, it's what the heck happened to this guy? He looks messed up, and why is he scared of Luke? And Entertainment Weekly recently had an interview with Andy Serkis, and they essentially said it kind of turns out that Snoke is most likely just Snoke. And that he's his own enigmatic character. He knows about the events of the previous movies, but most likely yada yada yada. So that's up on Entertainment Weekly from January, I believe, if you want to go back.
But then if you actually read Andy Serkis's quote in that article, he doesn't say one way or the other where Snoke came from. This is the reason why I love discussing this theory and why it just won't go away, because everybody seems to be just a little dodgy about it. Like even in those tweets from Pablo Hidalgo, obviously he's trying to throw people off the scent. He's saying Plagueis was killed, but he doesn't say like
How is killing? There was killing. He's dead.
Because that's exactly what he already said in the movie.
But how is that dodgy?
Because that's what Palpatine already said. I don't know. Again, not that I'm like gonna live or die by this, but I just like I like poking holes in Jason's.
Oh yes, he just likes poking us in general.
Palpatine does that.
So it looks like we have some question right there. So yes, sir. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm like, we have decorum here, ladies and gentlemen. We have microphones. Go ahead, sir.
So I was wondering, the island that she finds Luke on, is that on Tython?
It's Ahch-To, I believe, is the name of the planet,
Yeah.
which sounds like Ahch-To, but it's Ahch-To, is
Octo,
ACH or AHCTO, yeah, of the planet.
Now I will say
That
that.
was kind of weird because I thought they said that's where the Jedi started, and I thought that was Tython.
Yeah.
In
Well,
the old expanded
The legends.
that's from the Old Republic video games and storyline and stuff, which is not officially canon. I personally, I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, man, I thought that would be really cool if that was Tython, because I'm a huge fan of the Knights of the Old Republic games and stuff myself. So I like that, all that old lore and everything. But as far as we know, that's not. I mean, we do know it's called Ahch-To or something like that. So it may be a situation. Yeah, it may be a situation where they took the same planet and renamed it, because they've done that before with Korriban and Moraban and Clone Wars.
Yeah,
But
so they can still pull from legends.
But also in the video game, Tython doesn't have that much water, from what I remember. So,
Yeah.
probably
All
not.
right, next.
So I feel like it's no secret that Force Awakens is pretty similar to A New Hope in the sense,
Yes.
giant death man, we gotta get rid of that. Do you think the future movies are just gonna kind of do the same thing, like kind of rehash 5 and 6? Do you think the directors will try and mix it up a lot more than just kind of
I think
pay
it'll
homage
be,
to?
yeah, The Force Awakens was definitely, I called it kind of like leaving kind of a greatest hits of Star Wars, which I appreciated. I don't see Starkiller Base as just another Death Star. If anything, it's much more. It destroys entire systems in a much cooler way than the Sun Crusher did in the books and everything. But it was the Dark Saber. They had a bunch of them. Anyway.
There was a super weapon of the week going on.
Yes,
in the novels
but
for a while.
so that's nothing compared to the old EU. Read the old EU, you find a lot of the old Death Stars. But I think in the new films coming forward, I know that for Episode 8 going forward, that one of the Disney executives at some point said that Colin Trevorrow is going to do something weird, and I think by weird he meant kind of different and interesting. And 'cause Star Wars can be very weird. But yeah, I mean that was one of the criticisms. I think some of it has some valid stuff, but at the same time, it was The Force Awakens is kind of a recentering and also a reintroduction to many people about Star Wars. We have many young people in here that they may have been introduced to Star Wars for the first time with The Force Awakens, and I think that's awesome.
J.J. Abrams even said that in an interview too.
Yeah, it was
He was kind of
intentional.
addressing criticisms that it was too similar, and he said that was kind of intentional because the prequels were so divisive. They wanted to kind of draw people back to the core of what they felt like was real Star Wars, I guess.
And well, if you, and and if you look at Star Wars as a whole anyways, it's sort of rhyming beats anyways.
Yes.
You get with Anakin and Luke, the hero's journey, and the only thing that's different is Luke continues on the hero's journey and Anakin fails in that journey. So they start on the same journey and then it's, they split. But there's rhyming beats with Star Wars, and I'm sort of expecting something that seems similar to A New Hope anyways, going into it, just because of the nature of the trilogies and all that stuff. So I think that, while yeah, it's similar, it wasn't something that I felt was overdone.
Okay. But to answer the other part of your question, I do think and hope that they'll do some more new original stuff with episode 8 and 9 going forward.
And I think it would make more sense to sort of deviate from the traditional Star Wars playbook, if you will, going forward in the new movies, episode 8 and 9, rather than episode 7. So.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Alright. Do you think Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord?
No!
Yeah, I love Jar Jar. In all honesty, hey, Jason. No.
If there's one character you shouldn't make fun of around Jason other than Palpatine, it's Jar Jar.
Let me put it this way. Jar Jar gets a lot of flack, and I understand Jar Jar. I don't laugh at everything Jar Jar does, but I understand his purpose in the overall scheme of it. And if you want to talk about it after the panel, I'll be more than happy to talk Jar Jar with you. But no, he's not a Sith Lord. Go away. Okay, next question.
I arrived here a little late, so I'm sorry if we touched on this topic already. But
We talked about it.
you talked a bit about Plagueis and Snoke and all that. What about the other guy, Kylo Ren? What do you think the future holds for him? Do you think that there's a possibility he'll go to the good side, or?
That's a good question.
Well, it's due to the nature of Star Wars, and the fact that we've seen Anakin come back to the light after murdering younglings, it's possible. I don't think it's likely. Seeming as how he's trying so hard to not be seduced by the light, it's distinctly possible. And if anyone could do it, it would be Rey, not Luke. Luke would have the opposite effect, I think, on Kylo. So we will have to see the development of Rey in conjunction with Kylo to see if that's a possibility going forward, I think. But I think there may be an attempt to bring him back to the light, but I don't think it will succeed.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of up in the air because I think there's still something to play. I think Kylo is still going to be a complex character going forward. I think the things that Han said to him about Snoke just manipulating you and using your free power, I think those are true. So maybe we'll see Kylo turn against Snoke at some point. Maybe we'll see him try to be redeemed. But I also think they made a pretty strong point in this movie of showing him being so conflicted between the dark side and the light. And then at the end of the movie, when he he seems like he might be coming back to the light side, and asks, his dad, Han Solo, he's like, I'm being torn apart, I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I'm strong enough, like, can you help me? And you think he might be coming back,
And
then he snaps him and kills him instead. Like, I think that was a pretty strong, okay, he was on the fence, and now he's on the dark side. So, I hope he doesn't just suddenly become, like, this evil mustache-twirling villain for the rest of the trilogy. I definitely like the depth and complexity of that character, and I think it's still there. But I think there's probably less chance of him being redeemed than there was for Anakin.
Okay, well, for those of you, are you in line? Okay, yes, one more, and then we'll have more time for questions right at the end of this, but we're gonna go to some other things.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get moving. Sorry,
Yes.
guys.
So, as for Kylo Ren, I think he actually is a very complex character, and I'm not sure what side do you think he'll turn to, because his family legacy is made up of both Jedi and Sith.
Well, he's like I mentioned earlier. We'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that, really. Because really, who knows? He could go either way. I would love to see redemption. Is that possible? Well,
And the thing is the family member that he's idolizing at this point is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So, he's got the mask.
Yeah, the mask.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing about like where this show, finding out that his grandfather is essentially a lot of the EU, or I call it EU, a lot of the books and the stuff going out right now is that Snoke taught Kylo that Vader's downfall was his lightness, the light side that came back within him. That the Empire would essentially still be around if Vader had just let the Emperor kill Luke right there, and that was a weakness that Vader had, not a strength. Was that lightness inside of him? So we'll have to see. It'll just be interesting. Yeah.
I will say, if Kylo does get redeemed, I mean, I don't want it to be just like a straight copy of like, oh, Luke redeemed Vader and now Rey's redeeming Kylo or whatever. But I think one thing we haven't really seen before in Star Wars, at least not in the movies, we've seen this like in video games and stuff, is a character get redeemed from the dark side and then continue their story after that. If we had Kylo Ren be the main villain of this trilogy, at the end of it have him be redeemed, and then like 10 years later they do episode 10, 11, 12, where he's like the Luke Skywalker Jedi mentor figure, and see how he sort of deals with obviously his dark past and how he tries to redeem himself from that by training new Jedi. So I think that could be cool.
Well, we're going to go and show, as we transition over
Coming soon
to Rogue One, which has been in the news quite often in the internets, but we're going to show the trailer real quick if the audio works.
Has anybody not seen this trailer?
State your name for the record.
Jen Erso.
Forgery of imperial documents, possession of stolen property, aggravated assault, resisting arrest.
On your own from the age of 15. Reckless, aggressive, and undisciplined. This is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel. We have a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know what it is and how to destroy it.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
What will you do when they catch you? What will you do if they break you? Did you continue to fight? What will you become?
So we have a brand new Star Wars film coming out in December, and I'm going to stop it because it's going to
State your name for the
repeat
record.
again.
Jen
But
Erso.
I have actually, this is an exclusive right here at Phoenix Comic-Con. I have the actual synopsis of the film. It goes a little something like this. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet.
And to those of you who are going, that sounds familiar, you would be right. That's the opening crawl from episode 4.
Yes. Yeah. But that's basically what the film's about. It's about getting the Death Star plans. It's and Rogue One has been in the news lately when it comes to online stuff. Number one, a few weeks ago, a bunch of pages, essentially preview pages for an upcoming guide to Rogue One came out, and we're not going to go over all those specific details and stuff that much. But they have like names of characters, which some of them are way too hard for me to pronounce right now with an actual movie to understand how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. And a lot of the character descriptions say, so-and-so helps steal the Death Star plans, and this other person is ready to fight with the rebellion, and so it's not very spoilery, but we do have like some new ships, or a new ship I should say, perhaps some new TIE fighters as well, and the Imperials, the troopers and stuff that we have a shore trooper, which has been confirmed, Death Troopers, And those AT-ATs or AT-ATs that you saw are actually called AT-ACTs, which stand for All-Terrain Armored Cargo Transport. So they look a little bit different, and so perhaps maybe their armor is not too strong for blasters. You know, maybe they don't need to wrap around their legs. You know, maybe their cargo is like a bunch of thermal detonators, and they just like blow up, and then it's all like that. So now,
Well, before we get
yes.
into this reshoot thing, impressions, Rogue One, you excited?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to be honest, I'm one of those people that's like, okay, cool, Rogue One, when do we get to see episode 8? I want to see more of Rey and Kylo Ren and all those guys. But at the same time, like, more stormtroopers and Imperial walkers, and if we get to see Darth Vader in this movie, like, heck yeah, obviously I'm gonna go see it probably multiple times, and I hope it's awesome. So, you can never really have too much Star Wars as long as it's done well, in my opinion. So, and those new TIE fighters, you can barely kind of see up in the corner there, but I love those things.
Yeah, they kind of look like kind of like a mix between a TIE bomber, but more like a interceptor, kind of look like half the wing or something.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's like a TIE fighter with the wing design of like a Jedi starfighter.
Yeah, or like a Sith fighter or something like that, yeah. And of course they have like a ship right there, the Rebel side, I believe some people are saying it's the U-Wing or something like that. I don't know, it's pretty cool. And they have some aliens that one of them looks like either he's from the movie Critters or possibly escaped from the set of Doctor Who. I'm not exactly sure, but he's there and they look cool. And of course, Death Troopers. I mean, some people hear Death Troopers and they think of that really cool, scary Legends book, Death Troopers, which was about zombies and stuff. And I've actually heard some folks, Mark Hurlman on Star Wars Report, say maybe there are actually dead people in there. I don't know about that, but yeah, there's cool, stormtroopers in black armor. A lot of cool stuff to look for. But
and for those of you who are, just to clarify, this is not taking place after episode 7.
Yes.
This is a standalone movie that takes place right before A New Hope.
Yeah, if anything, this is episode 3.5.
And as far as we know, there are no Bothans that died in this movie, because that is the second Death Star, ladies and gentlemen.
Second Death Star.
I don't know, I'm hoping that maybe we'll see some Bothans, but this isn't the one where Mon Mothma's crying about. So, anyway.
Even though
she is in the movie, though. That is awesome to see her, which, by the way, that actress was going to be Mon Mothma in episode 3, but her part was cut. So it's nice to see that they actually went back to her. Very cool. But one of the things that has been talked about with Rogue One just last night, just this week has really been going on, is reshoots and the
panic about Rogue One.
About this. Now, before we can talk about much, the reshoots right here were scheduled already to happen in July. Now, the report essentially says that, quote unquote, industry insiders say that.
Always trust industry insiders.
Yes. Say that the feel of the film was not akin to The Force Awakens. And that, I mean, you can tell from the trailer right there itself, it has a kind of a darker feel to it. And that perhaps they may need to go in and retweak certain parts of this film to make it feel a little bit more like A New Hope. To kind of bring a little bit more fun into it, this and that. And according to some reports, including one from MakingStarWars.net, they said they're actually going to be essentially reshooting perhaps up to 40% of the film. Now, you may say like, oh my gosh, now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Number one, this movie is not coming, if this movie was coming out in September, then yeah, maybe there'd be some time to panic. But it's really, this is the general vibe going on from all these reports that the industry insiders say, yeah, we're reshooting stuff, but at the same time, they're also saying, but no one's panicking at Lucasfilm or Disney. Everyone's saying, okay, we're just gonna tweak some things here, we're gonna reshoot some scenes. This happens in almost any movie that you have.
Reshoots are scheduled into filming schedules, all movies, because you start getting into the editing process and things don't quite line up the way you want it, or you need an extra shot for such and such scene because they missed getting something, or things like that. Or they just think, well, the scene didn't turn out quite the way we wanted it to, so we'll tweak it and refilm it this other way. So this is normal. So all these articles that you may see going around the internet saying that everybody is panicking about Rogue One reshoots, no. The only reason it's getting any attention is because it's Star Wars. All movies have reshoots, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't panic.
It's great clickbait material right
Yeah,
now.
and even if it is a panic, it's like, well, okay, at least they've still got time to fix it. So,
Yeah.
you know, if we get to November and it's like, oh, first test screenings of Rogue One are horrible, well, then I'll be worried. But, you know, right now, I'm like, these are probably just normal reshoots, and if there is a problem and, you know, the executives really aren't happy with it, I'm like, okay, well, good, we got like 4 weeks to shoot new stuff and fix it, so.
And then I'll just wait for episode 8 to come out. You know. And speaking of episode 8, let's go ahead and just get right into that right now, because we still got, I'm telling you guys, we have a lot of Star Wars coming out. And before you know it, it'll be time to see episode 8, which will be coming out sooner than we know. Let's see, it's going to be December of 2017. 2017, my goodness, so it's coming right up.
Year and a half.
Yeah, so we're going to go over a few things about episode 8. We're going to try not to get too spoilery or anything.
Good, because I don't.
Yeah, we have a few like little set photos, but we don't. I mean, quite frankly, I haven't read any leaked scripts or anything like that. Quite frankly, a lot of the quote-unquote leaked scripts, you're going to see a lot of them. Okay, because right before episode 7 came out, it would be very hard to for a fan to write up a leaked script because we didn't know anything. They kept it so secret. But now, of course, we know who the major characters are, and it would be easy enough to kind of guess where some of these characters might be going. Right. So I would expect to see a lot of fan-based leaked scripts coming out. So we're just going to go over what we know for sure, or at least what we kind of assume is going to be going on. Number one is that this is going to be perhaps the first Star Wars movie that essentially picks up right from that moment of handing over the lightsaber to Luke, which kind of throws some people off because we're used to Star Wars movies taking place at about a year to 3, or possibly with the Phantom Menace was it like 10?
10 between Phantom Menace and
Yeah,
yeah.
so we're used to having gaps of time. But in this case, they've already released some of the filming of episode 8, and they showed this online of them shooting this scene all over again with a whole new crew and everything. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing is that so we're going to be looking at Rey and Luke will actually have lines this time around.
He will actually talk.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear Luke's voice. But anyway, Luke might look. This isn't official concept art or anything. There was a kind of MakingStarWars.net has their resources. They never release the concept art that they are given. They do describe it, however. So they put out a description of some concept art that they saw about Rey and Luke. And this is essentially what the concept art kind of looked like. Again, Rey...
It's someone's interpretation of the description of the concept.
Exactly. So it's kind of the game of telephone right here. But
yeah.
You can kind of see that Rey basically looks very similar to how she looked in episode 7. Luke perhaps is looking a little bit more Count Dooku-ish right there, which I think is really cool. I mean, I love his robot hand right there. I won't really get into it, but if you want to check it out online, there's some really cool kind of possible concept fight scenes going on between Kylo, Rey, the Knights of Ren, and stuff like that.
Now, just to throw this out there, concept art does not mean it makes it into the movie.
That is true.
They make 10 times more concept art than anything that gets selected for the movie. So what Making Star Wars may be getting could be discarded concept art. And there was some of that got leaked that didn't make it into the movie for episode 7. So
You get one with, I think there was one with like Captain Phasma with a lightsaber.
Yeah,
Stuff.
things
But
like
there was
that.
a lot of concept art. There were some lead concept art images for 7 that were in the movie, like Vader's melted helmet and
Right.
Rey with a lightsaber.
Yeah, you can see the art of The Force Awakens. A really awesome book if you want to see just all the different ways that The Force Awakens could have gone. Check out that book because you'll be able to see some really fantastic art and some of how the script process works. Some of the other things that we know are going to be in the film are, Prince William and Prince Harry visited the set recently, and they hopped in an A-wing, and of course Mark Hamill was there, and I think they even dressed him up as there's even a shot of them dressed up as stormtroopers, so who knows,
We could get Prince William and Prince Harry as stormtroopers.
Yeah, I think they did confirm that they have like small cameos.
Yeah,
Which
so-
is probably just them as stormtroopers in the background. It won't be like, hey, look, there's that one scene with the royal guys.
Hello, you must bow before me, I'm a stormtrooper.
Like the fact that Daniel Craig was double.
Yes, Daniel Craig was TK-007 or something right there. In case you didn't know, that was the scene where Rey is being she's shackled up right
She
there.
mind tricks the stormtrooper.
And
That's James Bond.
Yeah, she mind tricked James Bond. So usually he has that effect on women, not the other way around. And here's some other stuff. We have sets in Dubrovnik, I believe is how you I believe it's where it is. And you could just walk by Dubrovnik and they would have these
That's
sets.
in, what country is that?
Europe.
Croatia. It's in Croatia.
It's in the country of Europe. But they also have some aliens, one of which here, this guy is actually, was in Maz Kanata's castle, actually. And then another
He
guy.
looks like a Silurian.
And that guy looks like,
I don't know. He
What
looks
the
like
heck is
he
that?
looks like the if anybody. He looks like somebody from the Critters movies from the '80s. Which, if you know what I'm talking about.
With his chain that hangs low.
Yeah, he's a pimp, man.
Okay.
So, and we also have a cool set picture here showing the Falcon. One could assume that this might be Jakku, or not Jakku, excuse me, they're not on Jakku. Why everyone go back to Jakku? This is the Acto, or whatever, perhaps planet where the Jedi steps there, and some sort of giant tree. Perhaps this is one of those early Jedi temples that Luke was searching for right there in episode 7. Perhaps.
perhaps. I think that's probably a different part of the planet though than,
Yeah.
you know, it's not where Rey first found Luke unless that tree just suddenly like.
That would be a really bad, yeah, well, that would be a horrible planet if there was only one small island on the giant
That's
ocean.
true.
I would hope there'd be other islands perhaps on that base
That's prime
planet.
real estate right there.
Yeah.
Basically buy the whole planet.
Wow. But some really cool stuff. I don't know, Kyle, Jason, what are you guys looking forward to in episode 8?
Everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's so far away right now, and there's so much that could happen. And I'm spoiler phobic, so I will not. MakingStarWars.net is a blocked site on my computer. I do not visit it. So I stay away from spoilers. So obviously, I'm going to be spoiled by some things because that's just the internet. But I don't know, and that's the thing. Is there's a lot of ways that it could go, and I'm excited about that. But the fact that I don't know, and the fact that I'm looking to be surprised by what comes next, is what really excites me. And the fact that I love a lot of the characters, and I want to see where they go. I love Rey, I love Kylo. Poe is great. Poe Dameron is one of the coolest characters.
He has an awesome comic series right now too. If you want to check that out, it's a good comic book series.
Yeah,
Poe Dameron's really good. Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo a lot of what Jason said. Like, I mean, obviously there's stuff from The Force Awakens that I'm looking forward to seeing more of. I want to see Luke training Rey as a Jedi. I want to see Kylo Ren learning more of the dark side from Snoke, because that's something else that we ended off episode 7 with you know, Snoke saying, "Bring Kylo Ren to me. It's time to complete his training." So what more is he going to learn, and how much more powerful is he going to become? I want to see more of the Knights of Ren. I want to see Poe Dameron flying around in an X-wing, blowing up more stuff because he's awesome. But I also just look forward to, you know, the surprises, the new stuff that we don't know is coming. And also, I was just going to say, with the stuff that we talked about earlier, as far like the mysteries that we're wanting to be revealed, who Rey's parents are, who Snoke is and all that
In
kind
fact,
of stuff.
that's what I'm most excited about, to finding out who Snoke is so we can put all these Plagueis theories to rest. Thank you.
See, here's the thing, though. I think that regardless of the answers, even if Snoke is Plagueis, even if Luke is Rey's dad, I think, just because we have so little to go on right now, I think the real answers to those questions, or the way that those answers are revealed, I think is still going to be a surprise to us, like regardless of who saw it coming or not. So I'm really interested to just see, not only like finding out those answers, but how they come about in the story and how all that's revealed. So that's probably what I'm most looking forward to. Yeah, Finn too. Well, and I'm interested to see sort of what his role is going to be going forward, because, in The Force Awakens, obviously, like, he gets the lightsaber first, and his whole story arc is about trying to, get away from the First Order and being, the stormtrooper who refuses to kill and decides he's going to fight for the good guys. Well, now we know
Finn and Captain Phasma showdown.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So now we know that Finn. His story arc is mostly complete in that sense. So now I'm interested to see like where they go from here. Is he gonna, just become a fighter for the Resistance? Is he still gonna be on the run from the First Order and Phasma? And are they gonna, keep hunting down this rogue stormtrooper? So.
Yeah, we do know that Finn will. Oh, sorry, Captain Phasma will be back. She got out of that trash compactor somehow. So
maybe she'll have more than 10 seconds of screen time.
Maybe, who knows? So we're gonna wrap things up.
One other thing that is confirmed, other than Episode 9, is
oh yes,
Han
of
Solo
course,
standalone.
our Han Solo standalone movie, and I don't think they actually have officially announced that this gentleman is going to be our new Han Solo. But it's one of those things that everyone knows, but they haven't released yet.
Yeah, it's like Lucasfilm hasn't officially confirmed it yet, but it's being reported by like
Variety.
Like legit movie news sites and not just the usual rumors.
So it looks like Alden Ehrenreich is going to be our new Han Solo. This movie is written by Lawrence Kasdan, who of course has written many of our Star Wars films, and his son John Kasdan. And it's going to be directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who not only directed the Lego movie, but also the 21 Jump Street movies and stuff like that. They're a good combo. Obviously, those two directors, and Lawrence Kasdan has a great way of writing comedic kind of stuff. One would hope that this might be a good, fun movie. Who exactly knows? Here's a quick little mashup of what he might actually look like. But it's gonna. Some people are like, "Oh, he doesn't look like Harrison Ford." To me, we've already had two young actors playing young Indiana Jones, and honestly, they did a great job. And we didn't think like, "Well, they don't look like Harrison Ford." But frankly, if they can do a good job in it, that's all it is for me. Now, apparently, Alden Ehrenreich was actually kind of discovered by Steven Spielberg when he performed something at a bat mitzvah. So for me, that's good enough. If Steven Spielberg likes this guy, then I'm cool with him too.
I will wait and see.
Yes.
I mean, this movie won't come out until 2037.
2018.
No, 2018.
2018. Excuse me. But we've still got quite a ways before this movie comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to see Chewie in that movie because I'm 6'8", so I have a kinship with Wookiee.
Yes. And of course, the future of Star Wars. We have Episode 9 coming out after that, and that's going to be directed by Ryan Trevorrow, who directed Colin Trevorrow. I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Colin Trevorrow, who did Jurassic World, and we could maybe have a Boba Fett story, perhaps. I think Josh Trank, before he had a mental breakdown, was going to actually direct perhaps the Boba Fett film.
I think Boba Fett may be a villain in a Han Solo.
Yeah, they might have combined. That's kind of like up in the air. They may have actually put that into the Han Solo movie and kind of done that. And of course, Ewan McGregor really is kind of pushing for an Obi-Wan Kenobi film, which I would really like that.
Yeah. Please, Obi-Wan.
Or maybe in a movie. Like I could see a trilogy of Obi-Wan movies. But anyways,
I love.
And of course, when all is said and done, we might actually see a whole new Star Wars trilogy after this. I mean, we could see episodes 10, 11, and 12. The fact is, Disney owns this, and they want to make money, and I want to give them my money. So they'll keep making these things. Now, we're gonna.
Considering the fact that I have a Star Wars podcast, I hope to keep making these
Yes.
things so I have more things to talk about.
So let's just talk about your podcast real quick before we jump out the door. Jason, Kyle, tell us about your Star Wars podcast.
So I'm one of the co-hosts of the Wampa's Lair podcast. We're a discussion-based podcast. But we don't really follow the news very closely. If there's something big that comes out, like the Rogue One trailer, we'll do an episode devoted to that. But we're more topic-based. So one of the things we've discussed more recently is we took 2 episodes to discuss the closing musical tracks for each of the films. So that was a lot of fun, and I love John Williams. So, please, John Williams, stay alive through episode 9 so we can have you.
Keep going.
But if you do want a podcast that focuses on all the latest news, talk to this guy.
Yeah, so my podcast is called Star Wars: The Saga Continues, and we basically do what we just did up here. We discuss the new movies. I started the podcast on the day that it was announced that Episode 7 was going to be coming out, we talk about the new movies. We also talk about some of the other stuff, like me and my co-host Tim. We're both huge fans of the Star Wars Battlefront video games, so we'll talk about news about that, and a little bit about Star Wars Rebels and books and stuff that are coming out. So it's mostly news and focused on like the new Star Wars stuff that's coming up, but primarily on the movies. Except sometimes we'll go on even longer tangents and discussions and stuff, and go for like 3 hours.
Their average podcast length is 3 hours.
Yes.
It's probably more like 2.5, but we've had a lot of 3-hour ones.
It's good to take in segments. I love it though.
And so it's not, we don't try to be like one of the high, top tier professional, like getting all the breaking news and having guests and stuff on. We just like talk about the news that other people have reported and then give our own theories and give our own spin on it. So we try to have fun with it and keep it kind of casual, and like I said, it's a lot of like what we were just doing up here. So.
And if you are interested, I do have business cards.
I don't, because I was too busy finishing this.
Yeah.
And didn't get to go to Staples or whatever.
And of course, there's the animated cast, as I mentioned before. That's nothing Star Wars. Well, we still do talk about Star Wars, ironically, on there, but it's about the Animaniacs if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And tomorrow we'll be having the Star Wars Trivia Challenge right here in this room. So if you
at 10:30
a.m. So if you want to help participate in that, you can sign up. The link is on your program that you can kind of just type in that little tiny URL that's on there and get signed up, and you'll get into the bracket for tomorrow, and we'll have some fun. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go wrap things up. If you have any questions, come on up and talk to us, and we'll be happy to talk to you. But thank you very much, and have a great day. Oh yeah, we got cards. Collectible business cards.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.